So hi, welcome to End Credit Reviews, on episode after the credits on End Credit Reviews. This is Tyler from End Credit Reviews, and I have a friend of mine that I haven't had on a show in a very long time.
Yeah, this is Luke.
Yeah, right now we are recording in completely different locations right now. This is a very ambitious sort of recording, but it's a pretty common one right now because what's been happening for at least a year now. So anyway, this is our long overdue review on the movie Wonder Woman 1984. So, Wonder Woman 1984 is a sequel to the first Wonder Woman movie in the DC Extended Universe. And this movie, we have Diana Prince, played by Gal Gadot, who is in Washington, D.C., I guess not really staying incognito, kind of contradicting what she
Yeah.
said in the, Batman v Superman. But anyway, there's this plot device where this type of stone, I guess you grant a wish and it comes true, but with a price, of course, the whole monkey paws tale, and then of course there's a main villain who wants to take advantage of this, who is Max Lord, played by the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal, and we also have a new friend
hmm
of Diana, who is Barbara, played by Kristen Bell. Wait, not Kristen. Wait, Kristen Wiig. Sorry, not
Kristen
Kristen Bell.
Kristen Wiig.
Sorry,
Yeah.
uh, I brain farted there for a moment. But Wonder Woman wishes for her true love to come back to life, and he kind of does, and he is reprised by Chris Pine in another guy's body, but we'll get into that later. But anyway, this movie is the first of various other movies by Warner Brothers to be released on HBO Max the same day that's theatrically released. This is kind of a thing that Warner Brothers is testing out for the entire year. So, anyway, Luke, what did you think of Wonder Woman 1984?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. After I finished it, I'm like, that was a waste of 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I delayed reviewing this movie was, well, part of it I wanted to ask at least one of my friends what they thought about the movie, but also I had to spend days just processing and just kind of wrapping my head around what were they thinking? How stupid this was. I mean, and this is
Yeah, I
coming
don't
from,
get it.
yeah, this is coming from the guy who watched Birds of Prey that was previous to this one, and that was really bad. This is arguably worse.
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't seen Birds of Prey, but out of all the DC movies, I think this is at the bottom.
At least of the extended universe of those
Yeah.
movies and that. But yeah, I mean, it's really WTF when you compare to the year before those two movies. We had Joker, which was an Academy Award winning movie and made over $1 billion, a movie that audiences love. And these are the two movies they released after that one. Oh my goodness. And keep in mind, I made a post a while back on New Year's Eve about what the worst movies of the year were. And keep in mind, that was before I watched this movie, so that's why it slipped under my
Yeah.
radar. And also that Capone movie with, what was his name again? Tom
Tom
Hardy?
Hardy.
Yeah, the guy who directed the Fantastic Four reboot, and Chronicle directed that movie. And that was pretty bad. It was boring too, but back to Wonder Woman. So, what was your main issue with Wonder Woman 1984?
I mean, the writing was just a complete train wreck. Most of it didn't make any sense and was contradictory. I mean, like the part that one of the first times that made me roll my eyes was the part when well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but like when Chris Pine like gets in a F-14, like a modern jet, and he's able to fly it, and like all he's ever flown is a World War I plane. It's like, how does he know how to do that? And also, why do they leave completely fueled jets in a museum?
Yeah, this isn't like a car dealership where they have the cars all fueled up, ready to go to test drive and for potential customers. This is the Smithsonian. Okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Wonder Woman just pulls right out of her pocket like I have a trick that can make this possibly invisible, even though she never uses this in later movies.
Yeah, I know.
Like
It
I
was
know.
just so they can make the invisible jet joke.
Yeah, I know. But what's also funny about that too is that they find a place to land, and then they conveniently are able to go back to the states without having to refuel whatsoever. Yeah, being
Also, Chris Pine was like scared of fireworks. He was like wondering. He's like, "What are those?" And it's like, "Come on, there was fireworks in World War I."
yeah, I mean, it wasn't like they didn't celebrate Independence Day back in the 1910s when he was alive in that, but I did like visually that moment where they're flying in the clouds and we see the fireworks near. That was, I liked that moment. But I think my
Visually, yeah, it was cool, but
yeah, I think my big issue with this movie is really the tone because I know Patty Jenkins, the director of this movie, she didn't write the first Wonder Woman movie. She was a co-writer in this one. But what's weird too is
yeah,
that she was a writer and director on Monster with Charlize Theron. That was a pretty good biopic about a serial killer back in like the 80s and 90s. So it just makes me wonder what happened with this one. And she was like saying, I wanted this to be tonally similar to the Christopher Reeve Superman movies in the 80s. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, we got the worst aspects of those movies. Like, Superman 3
yeah.
with
We
like,
got Superman 4.
yeah, Superman 3 and 4, I think we got the merging of those
Uh,
two because Superman 3 wasn't paced very well from what I remember. That was the one with kind of a bizarro like Superman guy. He was like drinking at a bar and Richard Pryor was completely wasted. Like he's an edgy comedian,
Yeah.
but he has to be like in a PG movie where he's just so tamed and watered down. And then like Quest for Peace is like again with the I can just magically turn something invisible just for the plot convenience. It's kind of like the equivalent of Superman in like the fourth movie just repairing the damage to the Great Wall of China just by looking at it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. I mean this is a kind of movie that I mean back when they made those movies it was understandable why they had to water it down to like a greedy businessman or some kind of huckster because back then there were various comic book stories that they figured that mainstream audiences wouldn't be able to digest or figure out, unlike nowadays where you can go pretty crazy with those kind of stories because there's a lot more comic book fans nowadays and a better understanding of the source material. But this one was just like I'm just really happy there's a good reason why we moved past this decades ago and why we should never go back. This is a great reason why we should never go back to this kind of
Yeah.
story.
And I don't know if you thought this too, but Kristen Wiig reminded me of Jamie Foxx in Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is
Yeah,
not a good thing.
I am so glad you brought that up. I forgot to, mention that earlier, but yes, like this character who later becomes Cheetah, she's basically the same kind of villain archetype we see in a lot of these comic book movies, mainly in the Batman anthology movies. Aside from, yeah, being Electro, Jamie Foxx's character in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, she's also Michelle Pfeiffer as Selena Kyle in Batman Returns. She's Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, as, Pamela Isley in Batman Robin. And she's also Jim Carrey as the Riddler in Batman Forever. We're all, like, nerdy with glasses and being, like, inconfident sorry, not confident, but then, an accident happens or some kind of magic thing happens and they're all powerful and confident in that. And it's just a really cliched archetype. And it was even embarrassing when
Actually,
they did that in The Amazing Spider Man 2.
and another one is the villain in Iron Man 3,
Oh, yeah, that too. But yeah.
Aldrich Killian.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah, that was a really dumb movie.
he
But
was like a nerd.
yeah, but at
Yeah.
least when he became the villain in that, at least it wasn't like opposed to Jamie Foxx's character where when he becomes Electro, the gap in his teeth is fixed.
Oh yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah, that is beyond parody right
Oh
there.
god.
Yeah, he was actually in a pretty good movie I watched recently on Disney Plus called Soul.
Oh yeah, I still have yet to watch that.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where I would say it's not really for kids because it's not really a straightforward movie for like the kids could easily understand and enjoy. It's a bit more sophisticated than that, but back to this movie. So we'll get to Cheetah later. I want to bring her back, but I'm just gonna kind of go in order chronologically the issues with this movie.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the opening. The movie kind of starts off with two openings. We have an Olympic Games moment that's kind of just okay-ish in terms of quality. I know it ties in with the whole thing. You can't really cheat in life or something like that. You have to earn your way, which is I feel like it's an okay message, but the opening scene was kind of lame. I mean, so Wonder Woman is trying to stay low in Batman v Superman. She's like, I turned away from man's world for like 100 years, like World War I, in that. But for some reason, she's randomly saving people in broad daylight, and then she goes to a mall. And you
Yeah.
tell me no one remembers her. I know they show her like taking out the security cameras and that, but still, there's plenty of eyewitnesses that can point you out. And also, what's stupid about that opening too is that these guys that do this jewelry heist is that they're so incompetent. You would think that if they're trying to steal jewels, that they would be like wearing masks and maybe carrying like submachine guns like Uzis or something like that. And on top of that, I feel like that could have worked better if they actually tied in with the main villain. Maybe Max Lord hired them to steal the actual like jewel from that place because that's what it was being held at. But they had nothing to do with it, so that opening sequence is kind of inconsequential. And these are some of the biggest like buffoons I've seen when it comes to a jewelry heist. And then of course, when they get dropped, like tied up in that, they land hard on this cop car. And it's like, wouldn't their backs be broken by that?
Yeah. Yeah, and there was that guy that randomly holds the kid over the edge, like Michael Jackson, when he
Uh,
held his kid over that ledge.
yeah, that was stupid. I mean, everyone's facial reactions like, no, 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 overreacting, and I'm like, oh god, please don't let the whole movie be like this. That was so bad. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, just the tone of it as well. But then also we get to, what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, so I already mentioned the incognito part too, and the mall heist thing. That was stupid. But also, let's talk about the villains of this movie. So we have Max Lord, who's played by Pedro Pascal. And what's kind of weird about
Mhm.
his villain is that he has a son, but they don't explain his connection to his son because if you look at his son, he doesn't really look like his son, like biologically. And I thought they were going to explain, like, his wife, or maybe he's going through a divorce or something like that, or maybe his child was adopted, but they never bother explaining that whatsoever. So I felt like that was kind of odd, but
Yeah, he looks, maybe he's adopted.
yeah, again, it's a movie that's over 2 hours long. They could even have a one line drop about that or mention or something like that. But anyways, so people have been saying that the villain of the movie is trying to be a commentary on a certain, iconic
A
individual that's
certain orange man.
yeah, someone that has they're trying to Orwellian, style off the social media platform. Oh boy, 1984 indeed. But anyway, let's
Oh yeah, same here.
yeah, yeah, and so he gets this rock. I'm just gonna call this plot device, and he wishes to become the stone. And you would think he would have resorted to that as a last resort thing instead of, wishing to become the stone. How do you know he wouldn't just magically turn into a rock when that happened? Wouldn't it make more sense
I don't know.
if he had that in his pocket and then when maybe he's cornered or he's about to be defeated, he then says, I wish to become the stone or something like that, and maybe that would escalate things instead of him already having the powers and that sort of thing. That was just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I can't believe the sequel to Wonder Woman, the main crux of the plot is about like a magic rock. Like it felt like, do you remember that old animated show called Dragon Tales?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It reminded me of that where they wish on that rock and like they just wish for whatever they want. It was so dumb.
Oh yeah, do you know what's another movie? I'm glad you mentioned that too because there's a movie that Steve and I watched years ago, and YouTube kept taking it down for copyright stuff. We watched a movie called Wish Upon, and it was a kind of a similar story,
Oh
but
yeah,
it was hilariously bad.
I've
It
I've seen clips of it. It is pretty stupid.
Yeah, but in a weird way, I recommend it because it's so funny bad that
Yeah,
yeah, it's worth a
it's
watch. I would recommend it in a weird way.
I've seen the ending and I left at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's also a bad movie like this one, but I would rather watch Wish Upon any day over this one because at least Wish Upon is a much shorter movie that's actually pretty funny, and this one is just
Yeah,
not
this
that.
movie was what, two and a half hours long. It felt like 4 hours because nothing happens and it just drags.
Yeah, I mean, in between the moment when she stops that heist, all the way to the moment where she's running around in the Middle East trying to stop Max Lord with these other guys, that is over an hour goes by without any big action sequence happening. And it does remind me of Superman Returns and Iron Man 2 where they're expensive movies but there's very little action going on happening. A lot of it's just people sitting down
Mhm.
and just stuff not happening and people just talking.
it's kind of surprising to me that this movie was also co-written by Jeff Johns, who's like a DC writer.
Hmm.
It's kind of shocking.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that's trying to be all feminist and female empowering, but of course, that kind of contradicts that, where we see like montages of people trying on clothes, especially Kristen Wiig's character is like, I just want to be as cool as Diana, and now she's like, oh, I can dress up and wear heels, you know.
That was so stupid. Like they clearly hinted at her wanting or her becoming Cheetah because she saw her wearing cheetah print heels. But then like later when she becomes Cheetah, there's zero explanation of why she turns into a cheetah. Like she just says she wants to be an apex predator. She could have been an eagle,
Yeah.
a tiger. Like there's a shark.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and what's so stupid too about the moment when she becomes Cheetah, we don't see her like turn into Cheetah. We don't see her like, like going through like any kind of transformation, like Eddie
No.
Brock as Venom in Spider-Man 3, or even Dandy Han as Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like at least we saw them actually turn into this villain monster character. But in this one, it's just jump cut. All right, I'm already the monster now. And I thought the
Yeah.
effects on Cheetah were
Yeah.
okay. I thought the face was kind of basic.
I just couldn't not think of the movie Cats.
Yeah, the musical and that. I mean, I was watching that fight scene in my head. I was just, part of my, I was thinking to myself, I need to read, get the clip from this and dub it like Jellicles dueling Jellicle cats. Yeah, that's that musical is a guilty pleasure. I haven't watched the movie that came out a few years ago, but I'm
Yeah.
just waiting to watch that with Steven because he said I want to see how much of a bad of a train wreck that is. But anyway, so yeah, she's not Cheetah very long, and there's a moment when we're talking about spoilers, so the hell with it. Let's just go into it. And they're in this water, and this power line's loose, and it's like, oh, I gotta save you. It's like, no, and she gets electrocuted. I'm like, okay, she's dead. But then when people announce their wishes, oh, she's alive. And I'm like, this movie is so toothless because does anybody die in this movie?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, not even like Max Lord after he's like nearly caused World War III and pretty much hijacked the presidency. He's scot free. He doesn't get arrested.
The whole renounce your wish thing at the end didn't make any sense because you can guarantee that there's going to be some conflicting wishes with people. Like if literally everyone on the planet, like you're not going to get everyone to renounce their wish because somebody might wish for world peace and then someone else might wish for like more nukes. So that right there is just going to contradict each other. So none of it
Yeah.
made any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think people were saying like, what if their wish was to, wish that their loved one didn't have cancer anymore, or wish that the world wars never even
Yeah.
happened. So now the wishes are
Yeah.
inherently selfish in a way. But also, what's weird too about the wish thing is that this one guy says, "I wish to have the empire of my ancestors." So these giant walls build up. Not very subtle, if you know what I mean. And but
Yeah.
when Diana wants, Steve Trevor back, he has to possess the body of another man. So it's like, how come if you can magically get the walls to appear and then a bunch of nuclear bombs to be created, how come you just can't create a living sentient life form? Instead, you had to possess the body of someone. Which, by the way, a lot of people have been talking about how basically Wonder Woman sleeps with this guy, but he has no knowledge of this whatsoever or consent. And people are saying, yeah, there's a certain word for that.
Yeah, I mean, if this situation was reversed, like this movie would have got raked over the coals for that.
Oh yeah, I mean, some would jokingly say like, yeah, it's gonna be hanging over in an awkward way that, yeah, Wonder Woman is the one confirmed character in the DC extended universe that is a unregistered sex offender. What were they thinking? Okay, it wasn't just the dumb, stupid monkey's paw plot, but also this whole like, oh yeah, this is this one guy, the body I'm just using right now. It's like, did they even think this
I
through? Is this like the
No,
first draft?
I think it was, and I think it turned out bad because, yeah, like you said, Patty Jenkins didn't write the first one, but she was a good director on the first one. But because the first one did so well, they let her like just take control of the second one, and I think that was not a good choice.
Yeah, clearly too much control. So, and then of course he's I think what could have saved this and not contradict certain things that happen in later movies. What if as soon as Max Lord said, "I renounce my wish," everything gets like reversed, and then they all end up, in the time before they even interacted with the stone. So only Diana and Max Lord really knew what really happened, and they say like, "I'm sorry" and that, and they go their separate ways. Because I remember there was an episode of Justice League Unlimited where Green Lantern and Batman stop this one guy from messing up the timeline, and they go back to the present day time before the whole event started, and only Batman and Green Lantern have any memory of what happened. So I'm like, they could have pulled it off with this one. So why? I mean, nowadays, not nowadays, but it seems like now everyone's gonna remember that random, crazy, few days that a bunch that World War III nearly happened, and everyone
Yeah.
was wishing for a bunch of cars to show up and other stuff like that.
And a random wall appeared out of thin air in what, Egypt or somewhere in the Middle East?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah. Oh yeah. Speaking of, so what did you think of that action sequence in the Middle East when the way she was like running was clearly made it look hokey and cheesy?
Yeah, it looks like she's running on a treadmill that's moving.
Yeah, it looked like she was ice skating, like and that too.
And
But
also that scene didn't make sense because she just ran into Max Lord by accident. Like
yeah, it's
they
funny.
weren't
Like,
looking for him. They just bumped into each other.
what are the odds?
I know.
Yeah, and then of course when they go back to find more exposition about the monkey's paw, like kind of plot device, and they said this is the cause of various falls in that and of civilizations. They talk about like the Roman Empire, how the final emperor of Rome had this thing and then it collapsed. I'm like, no, anyone who's actually looked at history, the Roman Empire was in a downward spiral long before the final emperor was there. But anyway, this I digress for that. Um, but also the action wasn't necessarily the best it could have been when it came to being shot, and people were joking about how bad the effect was when Wonder Woman saved those kids, how they were clearly like dummy doubles when she like grabbed them and when she
Yeah,
was
they were
rolling the
dolls
ground.
like glued together.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't as like infamous as like the Baby and American Sniper kind of deal, but yeah, it
Yeah.
was kind of chintzy looking for a movie that cost like $200 million. But yeah, I want to talk
And
about.
this is a one.
Wait,
I'm
wait,
sorry.
what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say this is a Wonder Woman movie, and she's like barely in it.
Yeah, there's barely any action in this entire movie, which is just like just really is confusing too. And also, there's a moment with Cheetah's character where she's becoming bad and that, and there's this guy who I guess harassed her earlier, and she like beats him up, and it's like this would have been perfect time to show her actually going as far as killing this guy to show like, oh, she's now a villain now. But because this movie again is so toothless and too like family friendly, rated P, like P, this movie could have been PG easily, could have been PG,
Mhm.
and they don't go that far. It's just, oh, he's just beaten up and that's it. It was like he should have just died or something like that. At least have more of an oomph or some kind of impact emotionally for the audience to see that. But this scene just kind of comes off as just half horsed and really pointless, I would say. But the one part that really took me out of it too was when Wonder Woman's like losing her powers and she renounces her wish and Steve Trevor goes away, and when she like jumps away and gets her powers back, you know what that reminded me of? I don't know if you remember the movie Hancock with Will Smith, but in that movie, I guess he finds out that
Yeah.
that woman that he's with, Charlie Theron's character, is like, oh, the more we're together, the more I lose my powers. So they like, he's injured and he has to save himself by getting away from her as far as possible, and that's what this really was like. And so she's like flying in that, and it's like, how come she didn't do that in the other movies we've seen her in? And there's this dramatic moment. She's flying around, and then she goes to her apartment, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, she lives in Washington D.C. and she flies. Was she like going in like circles in the clouds, like flying around? Because how far is her apartment from the Capitol building? It made no
Yeah, there's
sense.
And the fact that she can fly at all, well, I don't know if it's really flying. It's kind of, she just like lassos the clouds or whatever. I guess it's flying, but
She
she doesn't use it again. Like, this is a prequel, but she doesn't use it in Batman v Superman or Justice League.
and her sword is completely absent in this movie too. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious when she lassos a commercial airliner and just like
Oh,
flies up, and I'm thinking to myself, that was so convenient. Is this a video game? Is this like that what was the name of that video game franchise, that Just Cause, like Just Cause 2, I
yeah.
think it was, where you could like lasso onto an aircraft and like fly, and that it was basically that. And so she and yeah, so she's at the apartment. She gets this golden armor on. That's really there just for the trailer. If you think about it, it's really not that special. And they say, "Oh, it's for our best
Mhm.
warrior." And then it's later revealed it was Linda Carter's character, I guess, as a cameo appearance. So I'm wondering,
That
like,
was the only scene I liked. That scene
yes,
was the only one I liked, was her cameo.
yeah, same. But it makes no sense too. Like, like why doesn't she have the armor? Why does Wonder Woman have the armor? They don't really explain why she has the armor.
Uh, no, and she uses it in the final fight, and then again doesn't use it in the other movies.
Yeah, no, and yeah, she doesn't really use it that much in the climax of the movie. And you know what's also really absent too from this movie is the Wonder Woman theme. You don't really hear that awesome Wonder Woman theme by Hans
Yeah.
Zimmer. That is severely
The only time
lacking.
I heard it, I think I only heard it in the Middle East chase scene.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like in that Halloween 2 movie by Rob Zombie, where I don't think the Halloween theme plays once in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole movie is just a complete mess. Everything about it is just, what were they thinking? This really feels, you know how Marvel people accuse Marvel of being a bit too kind of soft and light, and people accuse DC of being too dark and
Yeah.
edgy at times. This really could have used a bit of edge, at least in moments. It could have used a bit of, bit of spunk at times. But again, they were going too much for the whole light-hearted Richard, Christopher Reeve Superman movies from the '80s, the worst ones. And we got this movie where a lot of people would agree, no matter if they are a big DC Extended Universe fan or they've been hating on the movies, they agree that, yeah, this movie is just not very good.
No. Yeah, I think with the tone they like overcorrected because they were too dark in their other movies, and then they went the complete opposite direction this time, and I think they should have found some kind of middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the reason why the other movies were dark, at least the Zack Snyder movies, was that they wanted to show, like, how they actually earned being light and being colorful in that, because they kind of want to show how the heroes made the world better in a way. They didn't want to show like everything was all hunky-dory and that sort of deal, and they didn't want to do the same mistake as like Superman Returns, where it was just too much of like the same old what we saw tonally, and they want to do something different. And Snyder planned on 5 different movies with Superman, whether it be a Superman movie or a Justice League movie or a crossover movie, where we would get to know Superman would eventually become the iconic Superman that people actually know and
Mm.
love. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the Snyder cut coming up soon. We'll see what happens with that. But any final thoughts on this movie, or anything you wanted to add, Luke?
I mean, I think it's insane that they've already greenlit a third one that I think is still being written by Patty Jenkins. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, how are we getting a third Wonder Woman and we still haven't gotten a Man of Steel sequel?
Yeah, I know. It's like just a classic example of failing upwards in Hollywood.
Yeah, I hope maybe the Snyder cut will get people more into Superman again, and maybe they'll actually make more Superman movies. Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. But also, I mean, that reminds me of remember the Charlie's Angel reboot with the one with Kristen Stewart that
Yeah,
bombed? Yeah, that was one
yeah.
by Elizabeth Banks. I heard shortly after that movie came out that she's going to direct The Invisible Woman, not the
Mhm.
one from Marvel Comics, but there is a Universal monster movie called The Invisible Woman from 1940. So she's going to remake that movie, part of the Universal monster series. So I don't know if it's going to be connected with the Invisible Man movie with Elizabeth Moss, but we'll see what
Hmm.
happens with that one. But yeah, I mean, this was just a big quagmire, and at the time we're recording this movie has roughly a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb, making it the lowest rated of the DC Extended Universe movies. So, what would you give Wonder Woman 1984, Luke?
Well, I guess I'll just do it out of 10. I don't think I can give it more than like a 4.5. It's just the plot is completely nonsensical. It feels like a first draft, to be honest, and I don't know what they were thinking when they were making this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here. So personally, I think the movie is just a big quagmire of what were they thinking. I guess you can blame Patty Jenkins possibly for having too much creative control over it and just kind of polarizing people, at least like the first movie, and going in a direction that was way too silly and cliched and chintzy. And also, compared to the other movies in the DC Extended Universe, this stands out in all the wrong ways because it's just way too hunky dory and light in tone. And yeah, it could have benefited with some depth, and I felt like they should have, again, like restarted stuff when after he renounced his wish, so it would have been like, okay, the things happen, but it doesn't contradict anything in the timeline, at least in Batman v
Mhm.
Superman and what we see in Justice League. So, as for the performances, I think they were fine in that, but I was really bored with this movie. It could have benefited with more action. Again, it really it's just a big disappointment to me. So, as for Wonder Woman 1984, I would give it about 1.5 stars out of 4.
All right, it's about the same as I did if I had it in a 5 point scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Steven was on here, he would probably give it a little bit more of a positive rating just because, he has the hots for Gal Gadot and that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people by now probably forgot about that cringy video she did with all those other famous people when they're all singing
Oh,
Imagine while they're singing
yeah, I
about no
remember that.
possessions while they're in their multi-million dollar homes.
Yeah, that was some serious cringe.
Yeah. Yeah, that was yeah, pretty bad, and she probably wishes she could go back in time and stop doing that. But so anyway, this is Tyler from Encode Reviews.
And guest Luke.
Yep, and we hope to make a lot more in the future and review various other movies like this one. Please like and subscribe.